Trudeau, Justin Trudeau?
That I just shake my head at that.
Okay.
Oh, man who capitalized without virtue on the name of his father.
Wow.
Yes, wow is right.
Wow.
If he had an ounce of character, he would have never run. I'm not happy about him. He had no right. Well, he had a right. He's a citizen. He can run. He didn't earn his name. Not impressed.
Why do you say that? Is this specific?
Because his father was very famous.
Sure.
And so that put Trudeau at a tremendous advantage with regards to moving into a leadership position in Canada. It's not excusable. You should move ahead on your own merits, especially if you're daring to do something like run a country. It's like, you have a moral duty. If you have the advantage of a name, you have a moral duty to supersede the accomplishments of the person who bore that name and gave it its weight before you dare capitalize on it in the public sphere. And Trudeau did none of that. He knows how to behave. He knows how to act in public. He had the upbringing for it. Other than that, there's nothing there, not that I can see. And if there was, he wouldn't have run the way he did. He's not an impressive person in my estimation.
Some strong opinions there, strong beliefs there.
When he appointed 50% of females to 50% of his cabinet, because it was, what did he say? Because it's 2015. It's like, no, quarter of your elected members of parliament were female. If your job was to pick the most qualified people, period, regardless of their genitalia, because they're leading the country. You pick the most qualified people. Instead, he abdicated his responsibility to make those difficult decisions and then wallpapered it over with this casual virtue of, well, I'm going to promote women. It's like, no, you're going to promote competent people. You weasel. No excuse for it.
Wow.
Let's put Canada on the psychiatrist's table. Let's diagnose Canadian society. Is it delusional? Is it paranoid? Is it stable? What is it?
Blind. Manipulated, led by, I think, our leader, Trudeau. I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word. You know, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic in that regard. I've met people in my clinical practice and otherwise who were temperamentally incapable of any gesture or any word that was actually genuine. And that's a consequence of long practice. I think he's at least narcissistic, at minimum. And I think he's enabled by the useful idiots of the liberal left. And I actually think that's a very widespread problem and probably more typical of Canada now than any other developed country, much to our chagrin.
Or a Confederate flag, or the insults and jeers just because they're wearing a mask. That's not who Canadians are.
All right, so here's
wow.
here's
I can hardly even look at him. Well, he's lying, and I'm not. So that's a big part of the issue. I don't believe that he ever says a word that's true. From what I've been able to observe, it's all stage acting. He's crafted a persona. He has a particular instrumental goal in mind, and everything is subordinated to serve that.
Why?
So,
what's the motivation?
The same motivation that's generally typical of people who are narcissistic, which is to be accredited with moral virtue in the absence of the work necessary to actually attain it.
All right.
He's playing a role.
See, I'm afraid that what's going to happen is that the Canadian economy is far worse than people think, and that we're going to discover a lot of things under the carpet that were hidden by the Trudeau government. Now, the evidence of that is he has a bloody scandal every week that should be sufficient to bring down his government, like the last scandal we just had about the airlifting of the Sikh people out of Afghanistan. It's one a week. And so we're going to see a lot of things that we don't know about the second Pierre Poilievre is elected. And they're going to be instantly blamed on him by the environmentalists and the Greens. And then he's going to have maybe 4 years to mop up what is one god-awful mess. And so, you know, I could see a scenario where he's in for 4 years. All those Canadians who have to remortgage, which I believe is about 60% of them, are going to do that and lose their houses. And it's going to be like really a rough go for him. Leaders who envision the future are called upon to presume that we can manage, to offer that vision to young people. In faith and courage, because that's what you have to confront the future, because you don't have the facts at hand and you never will. And you say something like you do when you get married. And the idea is, we can do this. That's what you say when you have kids. We can do this. And it's the business of leaders to say that, especially to young people, that we've got this. If we put our heads together, if we abide by the proper moral principles, if we make the right sacrifices, if we're responsible, we can make the future the promised land. And so conservatives have that at their, it's within their grasp. It is very interesting to see, well, Ford has done the same thing in Ontario, that Ford and Poilievre have really become the voice of the working class. And I see, the thing is, you kind of see that with Trump in the US too. And I think maybe it's because we've actually developed the realization on the classic liberal and conservative front that there is no better pathway forward for rectifying the economic misery of the poor than the free market system. And so to the degree that that's the case, and now I think the case for that is unassailable unless you're literally criminally blind, that it's easy now for the conservatives who used to be the party of big business, let's say, which is kind of what they were when I was a young guy, to be speaking directly to the working class. Is we're going to declutter the system. We're going to get rid of the idiot environmental taxes that do nothing but make your life more difficult and increase pollution. And we're going to serve you. And I think Poilievre has done that very effectively. Now,